Hey, this is Shea, and I'm at Cafe Gratitude in San Rafael with Sacred Steve Adler from Sacred Chocolate. He's actually known in the raw food community for even more than his incredible chocolate, which actually is like the best raw chocolate there is, especially the Amazonian. But we wanted to ask him for RawFu about the connection between spirituality and your food. So the question I really have, let me go ahead and introduce yourself first. I kind of plow right ahead.
Well, you did a wonderful job. I'm Sacred Steve Adler. I've been involved in the raw food movement since 1993. Anthony Robbins initially inspired me to get into raw foods. And now I'm involved in Sacred Chocolate, and we're a manufacturer of raw chocolate, raw nut butters. And I just feel honored and blessed to be here and share what I know about the connection between spirituality and raw foods and food in general. So thanks a lot for interviewing me.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that the raw food community would really get a lot out of this interview, actually.
Okay.
So how does what you eat, how can that expand your consciousness and open your heart and open your mind to spiritual realms that you may have never thought you would venture into?
Well, great question. A lot of different ways. First of all, I just want to say that historically food is always connected to spirituality. And I'll just back up a little bit and just quote like Sai Baba. I mean, Sai Baba has a famous quote that says, "Food is God, God is food." When you look at things very deeply, you realize that we're all one, we're all connected, and this reality is love manifest. And so, by bringing in food into your body, you're communing with all of nature. That's a spiritual communion, really. Historically, obviously, food's been, in celebrations, whether it's at the beginning of life, whether it's at the end of life, whether it's during a marriage. Food absorbs the vibrational energy of the environment. And so, if you're at a celebration, somebody's making a great toast, that love, that vibration goes into the food. Just like right here at Cafe Gratitude, there's a lot of gratitude, a lot of love, a lot of thought and consideration that goes into this whole operation, and especially the food, and that's why this place is so successful, because people pick up on that vibe. So food is very, very connected to spirituality, and as you get into it more and more, you realize that food can also be a tool, kind of almost a springboard to help your own spirituality in higher ways. And the first way that people typically find that out is by fasting, actually, or feasting, juice feasting or water fasting. I mean, in scriptures, fasting and prayer is mentioned together many, many, many times over. And when you start to look at why, and then you start to actually experience doing that, you actually realize, wow, there is a huge power behind what we put into our bodies. It affects, obviously on the biochemical level, it affects our blood, our hormones, our moods, our ability to interact with other people. I mean, you can eat, in the Ayurvedic tradition, they talk about the different levels of food, like I don't know the exact Ayurvedic terms, but there's like food that enhances the spiritual life, and then food that enhances, like, I think it's like Rajistic food, which is more like the warrior food, and then there's like I think it's the Cosmic food or something like this, which is more the, it's kind of just it brings you down type of food, So there are, it's well recognized in cultures, indigenous peoples, in Western culture, that food affects all levels of your own spirituality. Now, as you get into raw foods, and especially raw plant foods, there really is a noticeable effect on opening up your heart. One of the main reasons is because it's so high in water content, and the high water content is very magnetic in nature, and our sacred center, our 0 point, our soul is a very magnetic center. It goes hand in hand. So, as you get into like the more esoteric, the more, I should say, just deep levels of food knowledge or wisdom, you start realizing that you can eat different foods for different purposes. Obviously, in like shamanistic medicine, they know that you can eat just a particular leaf out of the Amazon jungle, and it'll set you on obviously a psychoactive type of experience, and that can be very spiritually awakening. So there's a lot of different, obviously Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food, right? So in a lot of senses, food is a drug. And so, obviously all our pharmaceuticals have originally come from leaves, from the Amazon jungle, from other jungles, from other forests, right? All our medicines are really plant-derived originally before they are synthetically derived. So there's a huge connection, and what I like to focus on is not so much the scientific and the effects of food, but really the love behind the food, the vibration, because really we're all about having greater awareness, having better feelings, being positive, having a positive outlook. And it's not so much about eating a specific food that creates a specific effect. It's more about bringing food into yourself that enhances your spiritual life holistically, all together, that allows you to become more positive, that allows you to want to exercise and want to be of service more. And so diet is a huge stepping stone in that. And a lot of the spiritual gurus will tell you that. They'll say, hey, why don't you, even in Western culture and like Catholicism, right? During the Easter week, they abstain, or even I think it's the whole 30 days, they abstain from meat, knowing that meat can be kind of heavy and kind of bring you down from a spiritual awareness. It's more like a warrior type food, right? So this is all really, really important. And as you get into the subject of raw foods, you're kind of almost thrown into this realm. And I know I was when I got into raw foods years ago. I had a massive spiritual awakening personally. I want to say one thing that's really important is that regardless of whatever food it is, whether it's vegetarian or animal products or raw or cooked or whatever, the most important thing about food and diet really is to eat with gratitude and not eat with guilt. Guilt's not necessarily a bad thing, it's actually a good thing. What it actually is, it's an alarm system. Guilt is an alarm system that basically says it's a departure from being in your heart. So as soon as you feel guilty about something, it's like the alarm system of your sacred heart saying, hey, wait a second, something's not in accordance with like your will and God's will here, and let's pay attention, right? And so that's the time to stop and pay attention and say, okay, look, I feel guilty about this, therefore I shouldn't do it, right? So if you're feeling guilty about eating something, it can be two things. It could be literally your heart saying, no, based on who you are and where you're headed and stuff, you shouldn't be eating this. Listen to that. Just stop, take a breath. Take a shift and do something. Other times it could be that, you're feeling guilty because you're just too mental about the whole thing. Your heart is kind of saying, no, it feels right to be eating this food in this environment with these people. It's honoring the love. But your mind's got all these different sort of rules and principles and rigid, ideas about what you should and shouldn't be eating at any given moment.
Do you have any suggestions for people to be able to discern whether that guilty little alarm system that may be going off for them is because the food they're eating isn't right for the path or the direction they're on, or whether they're just being too mental?
It's that's an individual thing. It's really hard to give a rule about that. I mean, I have to say holistically, it's about living in your heart and listening and being, flexible also, and being easy on yourself, and don't getting too mental about these things, because basically eating with guilt is at the root of every single eating disorder, period.
Thank you for everything that you contribute to this community.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me here.
Bye.